Amending the motion that seeks to approval for Irish participation in the Permanent Structured Cooperation known as PESCO. Excuse me. And I was in committee earlier today, so I didn't get to hear all of the contributions beforehand, but I can probably guess and make a fair stab at what some of the points that were being raised and maybe some of the scaremongering that has probably come from the opposition benches in relation to this. And I think it's important then in this debate that we put some very clear facts here, Ceann Comhairle. PESCO ultimately will enhance capability of UN-mandated missions, engage in peacekeeping, conflict prevention or the strengthening of our international security. And when you consider the fantastic reputation that we have, the amazing work that our troops do, in that peacekeeping, the international reputation that we have for it, this to me makes perfect sense. You know, we also have to think of many of the threats that we face, and we can all feel very secure here in our neutral country that you know, we're not at risk to anything, but we are. There are risks manifestly all over the world that could directly impact on us, and I think we should face up to that. And you know, most of these risks can't be faced by one country acting alone, particularly not a country of our size. So, you know, if you take a particular example of the likes of the risk of cyber terrorism or cyber threats in general, and we've seen such a huge increase of cyber hacking, and you know, there is a sense here that there's a lot of investment coming in from places like Russia and other countries into this whole area. You know, computers fly our planes, they run our transport systems, they operate our banks and protect our money, and everything that we need in this country. Our hospitals are largely run by computers. Imagine an attack on that computer system that would grind all of our facilities to a halt. So, you know, when we see activity in cyber hacking linked to places like I mentioned, we need a positive, proactive plan against that. And I want to know that the EU that I'm a part of has a coordinated approach to that, and that Ireland is at the heart of that coordinated approach. And that is why, if the Dáil passes our joining of PESCO, one of the projects that we will consider participating in is in around cyber threats and incident response information sharing platform. And that, to me, makes perfect sense and is a really important area that we can be in. And you know, this also, joining PESCO would also be good for our defence forces overall. The Taoiseach was very clear earlier, there is absolutely no commitment to increasing Ireland's defence expenditure to 2% of Ireland's GDP, but the increase in real terms relates to meeting the agreed objectives of PESCO. But I want to see increased investment in our defence forces in the future, not just in our equipment and in our infrastructure, but also in our personnel. Our defence forces saw a very significant reduction in their allowances late in the last decade, and to continue to attract and maintain the best, we need to look to reinstate those allowances in the future, and I feel passionately about that. But the reason I believe the PESCO will be good for our defence forces is that another project we would consider participating in is a centre of excellence for EU military training missions. And I would argue that not only should we look to participate in this, but we should look to host such training. And Ceann Comhairle, you'll be very aware that the 2015 White Paper on Defence outlined a very ambitious plan to develop a Peace and Leadership Institute on the Curragh Camp, building on the international reputation that we have as world leaders in peacekeeping and you know, conflict resolution. And you know, I would hope that the joining of PESCO might see the advancement of the Peace and Leadership Institute in the Curragh Camp at a greater and quicker rate than has happened to date, because you know, what that would involve is us developing a state-of-the-art place where, you know, NGOs, military and politicians would come from all over the world to come and study the issues of peacekeeping, peace enforcement, and also, you know, conflict resolution. And that type of investment that I want to see will enhance even further our international reputation, but also develop an institute of international standing that would employ an awful lot of people in South Kildare, and it would bring very significant investment into the area. One argument that was made earlier in the opposition that I did hear was that this is the joining of PESCO is some big drive from the armed you know, those who manufacture arms and from that industry. I was at a meeting in Brussels on Monday of the chairs of EPP parties, which we have a summit twice a year, and the discussion around defence at that was how, you know, the objections and the pressure that would be put on and the campaigns that might be mounted inadvertently by the arms companies, because of the fact this doesn't suit them at all, because ultimately what PESCO will see is shared equipment, and countries, you know, countries who all spend across Europe an awful lot of money in defence are doing so individually without talking to others, and maybe the sharing of equipment would actually see less equipment being purchased, but being done so in a more strategic and a smart smarter way. So, there was actually a discussion about the fact that one of the threats to this will be the fact that the arms industry will try and scaremonger and undermine and probably provide some of the arguments that members of the opposition are providing today, and they'll be delighted to hear you doing so. Count Cora, there's a number of other points I want to make, but I'm running out of time and don't have the chance to do so. But I just, when we're stating the facts here, I would like to finish up by saying that PESCO's participation it fully respects the constitutional provisions of all member states. It doesn't impact in any way our military neutrality. The triple lock still holds, where if Ireland is to engage in any peacekeeping activity, it involves it has to have a UN Security Council resolution or mandate, a government decision, and Dail approval. So, in that basis, there is nothing to fear here in PESCO, but it's a very good opportunity for our defence forces, and I commend the motion to the House.
Thank you very much, Deputy Sean Haughey, please.
Clearly that the EU has been the biggest